and welcome back to another episode of Our Own Devices with Nandagopal Rajan. And no prizes for guessing that this is Nandagopal Rajan again. But with me this time is Anand Lakshmanan, who's the head of video collaboration India and Southwest Asia at Logitech. Anand heads a company which a lot of us literally have touch points with, right? We literally keep our hands on Logitech keyboards and a lot of devices, mouses. I don't know whether you should call it mouses or mices, but yeah, but also means that in the past couple of years, the touch points have increased. People now are amping up their desktops, or, or whatever workstations they have, because it's at home. It needs to be as good or even better than what your office was providing in it needs to be as good or even better than what your office was providing you. And given an option, you would put it absolutely better than what your office is providing you. And I'm telling you from personal experience. Anand, a lot to talk about in this section.
Thank you so much for having me on this show, Nandagopal, and very excited. What better time to talk about this topic than at a time when we are all going back to work and from our offices. Yeah, looking forward.
Anand, as somebody working with and leading parts of a peripheral company or so is the work from home scenario the best case scenario for you?
Personally, if you ask me, of course, yes, because I live in a city where we spend on a good day about 4 hours commuting to work, and all of us have seen what benefits we can each derive out of saving that time when we are working from home. So it's an absolute yes from my side, Nandagopal.
No, but from a business side, how do you see this uptick? You have people now suddenly, using everything across the board. Things are no longer a luxury. These are things that are actually improving your productivity at home, making life better for you because you're actually working all the time. So whatever helps your work is also improving your life.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great question. So let's just rewind a little bit. Let's look at what happened when the pandemic hit us, right? Organizations, irrespective of size, were hit overnight with the challenge of having to continue business by providing technology to people from their homes, right? When people work from offices, we all have access to great networks, great bandwidth, internet and IT support and all of that, which was not available from home, but business had to continue. So one of the first challenges that people had was survival of business. But the good thing is we are living in an age where people had access to great tools, and the pandemic provided them an opportunity to try them. And in the process, what came to their rescue was video conferencing, because that's the closest that you can come to a face-to-face meeting, right? And video conferencing became actually over a period of time the game changer, which helped organizations continue business by giving them an experience which was very close to what it was in 2019, right? Point number one. If you look at the other aspects, second, all of us were worried about productivity. All of us were working from home in this form and fashion for the first time, right? There have been organizations that have been promoting remote work, but all of us working from home in this scale was the first time across the world. So people were, of course, worried about productivity, and there was a perception that if people are working from home, they are not necessarily that productive, and a lot of time is spent on everything other than work. But we were all proved wrong. Businesses continued to deliver the same, and in some cases even more productivity, because distractions were less, and the typical bustling workspace that we are all interested to, I mean, we were all used to, also came with its own, if I can call, disadvantages, in the sense that there were distractions that people did not have when they were working from home. So they could really focus on work, right? That was the biggest advantage. And in this environment, the biggest difficulty that businesses had was the experience of the remote worker. When people were trying to work from home and they were trying to connect with their colleagues remotely, the experience was what was coming in the way. And that's where, again, video meetings made a lot of difference. When people could see each other very well, when they could hear each other very well, when they could communicate with each other very well, I think the engagement just went one level up, and that helped people connect and collaborate far better. So there was absolutely no loss of productivity. If at all, there was only an increase. And finally, this led to the level of engagement that people could have, right? In a typical workspace, of course, yes, you could walk down the corridor, tap somebody on their shoulder and say, hey, can you please help me with this? And this is something that they were definitely missing when they were not able to meet each other face to face. And So the overall engagement was kind of a little different. But there again, technology came to the rescue. In fact, as an example, Logitech introduced many tools during the pandemic, and one such tool was for people who log in remotely to be able to see the whiteboard that we all were taking for granted, that was there in our conference rooms, that used to be the source of brainstorming sessions. When people used to log in remotely, they were not able to see this whiteboard because they were not there in the room, right? And we made that possible for people who connected remotely, and that again just improved their experience and thereby the engagements. So with the proper use of technology, daily check-ins or weekly meetings or virtual collaboration, anything that you can think about, right? With the right technology and the right tool, you can almost get the same experience that you were getting in 2019 when we were all working from the offices. This is what we have seen in the last few months when people are trying to come back to offices and continue business, Nandagopal.
Anand, it's a very interesting point that you make about recreating or getting as close to the experience of the office as possible. But there is another angle to it which I think is very valid. Is that, see, if you are not seen and heard in one of these Zoom calls, it might actually cost you your job, or you might be forgotten, right? Because you are working remote, and that ability to be out there, to make your point, and make your and be seen and be heard. How important is that? Because I know for instance that Logitech has been in the video conferencing space for a long time. You have had desktop cameras and all sorts of things, but people were buying those only when you had a very specific use case. Right now, suddenly you had everybody who is stuck with a 720p, in the best case scenario, a 720p front facing camera on your laptop. And you had to make an impact, so is that something, is there a fear that also came into people, that you really had to be seen?
Oh, absolutely. Whether they feared that or not, I don't know. It depended on depended case to case what people had access to. But I think for a better collaborative experience, the bare minimum was for people to be seen well and be heard well. Right. For example, this meeting. Right. I don't think we would have both had a great experience if you couldn't hear or see me well, and vice versa. Right. And that's where, yeah, heard you mention that laptop and desktop cameras. I don't know if you would believe, right now I'm actually smiling at a 4K camera which is working on my mobile data. I'm elsewhere, I'm not at my home, I'm elsewhere using a partner's office, and for this meeting I'm using my mobile data, which I could not connect to their network because I'm a guest in their office. But I'm assuming that you are able to hear me well, you are able to see me well. And this is a camera that I carry with me all the time, right? When I'm not using it, I just fold it and put it in my laptop bag. So, like this, there are many, many tools that are available, right? So let's just again look at what are the trends that we are seeing in the video conferencing industry. First and foremost, all of us have learned lessons from the pandemic, right? During the last 2 years of lockdown, we have learned to use new technology. But now, when people are going back to offices, because they have used technology in the last 2 years that were very simple. Nobody taught us how to install a webcam. Nobody taught us how to configure a wireless keyboard or a mouse or anything like that, right? Our respective organizations just shipped it to our homes. We just connected it to our laptops or desktops, and we were on, right? And similarly, these cloud-based collaboration platforms, we just downloaded their software, we created a login for ourselves, and boom, we are on video conference calls, right? So people saw that while technology is important, it was not necessarily complicated and they could use it themselves. And this expectation is not going to go away. When the same people now go back to offices, when they walk into rooms to do video conferences again, they will expect a similar experience, which is simple to use, right? And that is something, again, Logitech, as you may know, has been very, very popular for. We have been leaders, for example, in USB based devices. There are a lot of video cameras that we have that operate on USB, which is a normal port that you will find on any laptop these days, right? Second point is video enabled collaboration, right? There are many organizations that have done surveys on what do people have to do to continue in this hybrid workplace, and one of the key requirements is for video collaboration. And the video collaboration which people use for their virtual meetings starts with basically using a video camera that is good. And as I said, I'm using a 4K camera which comes with an integrated microphone, which means you don't even need those headsets that are hanging around your head, and some people feel uncomfortable. So technology, while it has become simple, it has also become very, very easy to use and easy to deploy. While all of this is from the user's perspective, if you look at things from the IT administrators viewpoint, uh, they had to provide technology and at scale, which means there were deployment challenges, there were manageability challenges. And there again, people like us, we have provided software that people can install on their laptops. I'm talking about the IT administration teams, with which they can not only get a visibility of the entire video estate, but they can also, let's say, run patches if there are issues in the network. They can run patches, they can remotely troubleshoot, they can help users get the maximum out of their endpoints. So there are many things. So all of this is possible sitting in a very, very remote location. And then we talk about video solutions that are available today that has AI built in. I don't know, Nandagopal, if I tell you, you will again believe that it is highly possible that in future you can walk into a room which has a camera that has AI built in, and it identifies that it is Nandagopal who is walking into the room and presents you just those meetings that you are either a host or a participant of, right? I don't know about you, but I have walked into conference rooms in the past where there is this remote control with 1,000 buttons on it. Instead of logging into a meeting, I have disconnected everybody. Things have become far simpler today. If you look at the control panel, it just has one button, and this is exactly what people want in 2022. They want technology, but they don't want technology to be complicated. You just have one button. That one button helps you log into a meeting and also help you get away from a meeting, I mean conclude a meeting. So AI is being extensively used, and there are a lot of studies that look at human perception and include what people want into technology. And in the hybrid world, as you may imagine, uh, this is going to be the norm in future, where any meeting is going to have a certain number of participants meeting face to face, because we are all now going back to offices, and definitely a number of participants who are logging into that meeting from different remote locations, right? And this is when I think there will be challenges on how to understand what the world calls as the non-verbal cues. When somebody is sitting across to you, you can read their facial expressions. You can understand from their body language whether the point that you are making is something that they're agreeing to or otherwise. But how do you do that in a virtual setting? It becomes all the more complex, and that's where again. We have invested in technologies that provide people not only a view of the speaker but also of the other participants. We call this the right framing, so that through the visibility that you get of other participants beyond the speaker, you get to see them as good as you see them across the table, right? So you are still are able to understand their acceptance or otherwise of the discussion points, right? And finally, uh, I spoke about the whiteboard. This is still a very, very powerful concept and a sought after requirement. We spoke about how the remote participants can get a front row view of the whiteboard that people are using in the room, right? And the world calls this as meeting equity, because when you are not physically in front of people, it becomes that much more difficult to get your points across, right? Because one, you have to wait for your turn to speak. People keep saying that you are either on mute or you have to go on mute. We are all used to that over the last 2 years of attending several virtual meetings. So in that kind of a setup, how do you still manage to get your points across? And like I said, this is called as meeting equity, and meeting equity starts with being able to be heard well, seen well, and collaborate with them. And again, like I said, a combination of technology makes all of this possible. And finally, this whole hybrid working environment, Nandagopal, is here to stay. I'm assuming our listeners also agree with us. This is not going to go away, even though we all know that COVID is waning, and with vaccination and booster doses and whatnot, masks going away. I live in Maharashtra, where the government has done away with the requirement for masks. Though things are looking good, I think for some more time, and that some more time could be a couple of years or even beyond, I think all of us will have to adhere to some level of COVID protocols, which means that we will have to adhere to the hybrid way of working. Definitely, in that kind of an environment, technology is going to be the savior. And the more we get used to technology, the earlier we concede to the fact that it is not going away, and make the right investments in the right tools, I think it's going to be good for all of us, and we will have a good experience of collaborating with our colleagues. And all of this has obviously led to the home office setups, Nandagopal. Like you rightly pointed out, people have made a lot of investments. They bought webcams, they bought wireless headsets, wireless keyboards, printers, and whatnot. So this has definitely given rise to home offices. But the key thing to focus on in home offices is definitely the experience part of it. One is our own experience when we are in front of the laptop or the desktop, and more importantly, the experience of the foreign. The foreign could be your customer, it could be your business partner. For a student, it could be a teacher who is conducting a virtual class. It could be any kind of setup. Again, for all of this, video is the key. Audio is very important, and the good thing is technology has improved and made life easy for all of us. And there are a lot of good devices and tools that are available at reasonable cost that people can invest in, and make sure that their experience is good.
I'll come back to hybrid in a bit, but one thing, which you touched upon on the kind of condition that you are working in, right, which also tells us that video conferencing is not a homogeneous problem, right? It also brings in a lot of complexities, like people using different types of networks, especially because they're not in an office environment, they are in a home environment, or maybe traveling, or maybe in a restaurant, in a Starbucks, which means you need to cater to different kinds of networks. Even though your capability, or you have a 4K camera, which basically maybe needs more bandwidth than usual. But on the other hand, you also have people who are using multiple software to make the video conference. So it could be a Teams, it could be like we're using a product called Zencaster, it could be Zoom. So how much of a software adaptation do you have to do in the back end to ensure that your hardware works well with whatever the situation is, so that the experience overall is the same?
So the answer is almost nil. Okay. And the best example I can give you is this meeting. Okay. I'm being honest. I'm using Zencaster for the first time. And I'm using a Logitech camera, as I mentioned. And I did no software configuration. I just plugged in the camera. The camera was intelligent enough to understand that the platform that I'm using for this meeting is Zencaster, and there was an automatic handshake at the
Yeah.
back end. So, as a user, I'm a salesperson, right? I actually am not a techie, right? But I'm using technology every single day. And for this meeting, I did zero software configuration. This is where technology has advanced today, and this is not just with Zencaster, Nandagopal. If we were doing this meeting on, let's say, a Microsoft Teams or a Zoom or a Google Meet, the result would have been the same, right? There was absolutely no requirement for the user to do any kind of configuration, right? You just plug in the device is built in with all kinds of APIs for it to identify which is the platform that is being used and do an automatic handshake. So we have in some sense removed the complexity out of technology, because we do understand that, like I said, this hybrid working is here to stay. People are going to continue using technology for a long time, and they've got used to it. They've seen the benefits, which means all the more they're going to adopt it. So we are focusing our energies on making it easy for people to use technology.
The other thing that you mentioned is the hybrid. The hybrid model. Like we are working in an environment where half our team is remote, maybe spread across India, across the world, but we are in office, which means that we have also had to upgrade some of our conference rooms to be capable of handling this. We did not have this before. And as you said, it's maybe a 2-year outlook or a 4-year outlook on how long we'll be working in hybrid. So does that mean a company like Logitech is looking at its product lineup in the future? Is it also looking at new scenarios in the hybrid mode? You mentioned the whiteboard, right? And that's a problem we had in real time today morning. We everybody thought everybody could see the whiteboard, and half the people on the screen, because some of them are even connecting from a phone at times, and that screen wouldn't make any sense when you're using a huge whiteboard. So how is Logitech thinking about the future? What all are you really having to go back to the drawing board on how to figure out the new challenges that might be thrown up in the coming years of hybrid?
Great question, Nandagopal. As any other product company, we have an evolving product portfolio, right? And most of our current products actually came from a customer's problem at some point of time, right? So let me give you an example. Uh, During the pandemic, to make life easy for ourselves, especially the corporate community, like we discussed, invested on gadgets, right? Tools, technologies that they needed to continue business, continue work from home. So we spoke about headsets, we spoke about printers, monitors, keyboards. What happened over a period of time is our workstation at home just looked like the one in the office, cluttered with so much of technology on it. Now life is coming a full circle. Actually, now people are actually wanting to declutter themselves. So what is that people are looking at? They are looking at devices that could probably be like all in one. Okay, so let's look at a typical home office setup. There is a speaker, there is a microphone, there is a web camera, of course there is a laptop or a desktop, and then there are speakers, and then there is this keyboard, mice, so many different gadgets, right? Unfortunately, fortunately, almost all of them are used at some point of time during the day, so you can't do away with any of them. But the thing is, laptops come only with a finite number of ports. You cannot connect all the devices in one go, but there could be situations that you will find yourself when you need almost all of them. So what do? That's when, for example, Logitech introduced what is that we call as a Logi Dock. This is nothing but a docking station which doubles up as your mini conference unit at home, which takes all the cables. It comes with, I think, inbuilt about something like uh, 9 to 10 different ports, including HDMI and USB C and multiple USB A's and Bluetooth. So what you can do is connect all your devices to the docking station and use your docking station as the single source of your video conferencing. So it has its own speaker, it has multiple beam forming microphones which have noise cancelling capabilities, and this sits like a nice piece of hardware on your desktop at home, and behind it goes all your cables, and this is it, right? So this is an example of what Logitech has done, taking customers feedback. Logitech was not born out of our imagination. Logitech was born out of our customers coming to us and telling us that, look, technology is good, but it has become complicated. Can you guys do something to simplify it, right? And today, as we speak, Nandagopal, the Logitech is practically the only docking station available in the market which doubles up as your speaker and microphone as well. And the good news is, for people who are using Zoom, Zencaster, Microsoft Teams, or anything else as their collaboration platform, it comes factory integrated and certified behind most of these platforms, which means, again, zero configuration at the user end. Get a Logidock, plug it into your laptop, go grab a cup of coffee. It's ready for you to use. So, in summary, uh, we keep our ears very, very close to the ground in terms of what our customers are telling us, and most of the feedback will go into our future product enhancements. As a product company, unfortunately, I can't talk about what are the exact products that we are coming up in future on a common platform like this, but I can guarantee the listeners that, uh, having come from a background of providing peripheral devices that has made life easy for anybody who has used a computer in life, they can expect Logitech to continue carrying that philosophy in future as well.
So, before we wind up, if I can ask you one quick question, Anand, um, is there one trend from the pandemic that really surprised you?
Okay, there are many, but if I have to choose the one that surprised us, it is how easily people adopted technology. Believe us, I mean, I have also worked for many IT companies. I've always taken the support of my IT team. But I think the biggest lesson that we all have learned in the pandemic is, when humans are driven to the wall, they come up with a solution, right? And we were in a situation, we all were in a situation where we did not have access to our IT teams, but business had to continue. We had to use technology. And I mean, even the IT teams did not have the bandwidth to deploy technology at the kind of scale that they deployed, right? Hundreds and thousands of employees had to be onboarded on technology overnight. I mean, it was an unprecedented expectation. But the good thing is, all of us learned.
Yeah.
All of us learned. So, as a technology company and as a person who has been providing technology solutions to customers, this is one thing that definitely, at a personal level, surprised me: the speed at which people said yes to and adopted technology. And now it's so easy for them, right? It's so easy for, I'm sure all of us have, school going kids, either in our house or in our neighbor's house. They are experts today. They teach us how to use the different features in Zoom. That's how much easy it has become, technology to be learned. And we have seen that in the last 2 years. So this is what surprised me personally, Nandagopal.
So you were listening to Anand Lakshmanan of Logitech, a very insightful conversation about products that we all use, and the products that have actually made a big difference to us over the past couple of years when we were all working from home. Thanks for being on the show, Anand.
Oh, my pleasure, Nandagopal. And if I can have one last word for the listeners, my request to them is, embrace technology. I can guarantee you, as somebody on the other side of the table, that it is simple. We don't have to be scared. It's easy to deploy, easy to manage, and easy to use. So please go ahead and use technology.
Absolutely. So you were listening to another episode of Our Own Devices. This is Nandagopal Rajan once again saying bye. We'll be back again next week with another guest, and we are available everywhere you listen to your pods.